Hello guys, and welcome to a new Broken Arrow video today by me, Vulcan. In this one, I thought it'd be fun to put together a couple of decks. The first one's going to be a Marine Baltic deck. I think Marine's going to suit Baltics very well because Marine is a very well-rounded specialization and it really can help fill the holes of the Baltic battalion. So let's go ahead and jump on in. First things first, we're going to want to sort out our recon. So we can either bring Easty Scouts, we can bring the Jägeris, or the SUV. Now these guys are good for close range if I need them, but it's likely going to be the Jägeris in this case, because I think the Carl Gustav is a little bit more reliable than the Spike SR. So we're going to bring that in, and I'm going to use them to bring in the Spartan. And then the Spartan is going to be carrying some Spike LRs with the grenade launcher. I think that's going to be a pretty fun combination to use, so we'll bring in plenty of those. These have 1400 optics. They've got that Spike LR with a 1600 meter range. We'll definitely make sure to bring them with the up armor so they get the 16 health. So Force Recon, we can put them to close range in order to take that role as a sort of scout unit with close range capability. We're not really going to need them at KNT as an amphibious unit, so we'll probably whip it over to the 90-point sniper unit and throw them in. We could also just use the 75-point scout snipers if we don't want them for a combat role. But either way, the M107 anti-material rifle is basically the same as the Hegate in terms of damage. So kind of just take your pick in that case, but having a cheaper sniper option is actually kind of nice with the scout snipers, so we'll probably use those. And in terms of transport, the LAV could be useful, but we're not going to bring it. I'm just going to pump in a few snipers, and then we'll add either the IFAV M2, which could have the tow to a anti-tank. That gives it 1750 meter range, but we're probably just going to go with a couple of scimitars. Scimitars are cool, and we'll up armor them to provide sort of armored fire support. And moving on to the infantry tab. Probably going to be using the Milan teams here, or I can upgrade them to the Spike teams. I think the Spike team actually probably going to be a better shout. We can put them in the XA 180s. So let's just bring in plenty of those spikes. They're going to be really nice with that 1600 meter range. They are only 4 health though, so they might get bombed or RT'd pretty easily. So I've got to bear that in mind. But we'll up armor the XA 180, not going to change the weapon at all, just keep them at 50 points. And 2 of those should be able to carry the spikes. They can also, of course, carry any other squads we want if we want to get to the front line quickly. Now the other thing that we're going to want to do is probably the Marine S'more combo. It's still really strong at the moment, so we'll add Marines, we'll add S'mores. So we'll get a couple of the AM tracks, and we'll pop the armor on those as well. Get that extra 2 health, and we can kind of run into enemy buildings with those. We've got infantry capability here, so we could go and bring in like some Laws, or we can get the Carl Gustav M2 as a 5-man squad. I think these with the M113s is actually going to be a pretty nasty combo, especially if we put cage armor and a grenade launcher. These kind of become similar to like VDV Dush in their use. You kind of just like drop on the enemy, and maybe not exactly on the enemy. You're going to be wanting to keep your distance because the G3 does excel from distance, but it's going to be a nice squad to kind of spam, is what I'm trying to get at. So you can have like 2 of these in each M13, be a really nice combination. Then for our close range, we're going to use the EST SOF rather than the Zaliukai, because the Zaliukai, whilst they have a flashbang, which is pretty handy, the multi-purpose AT weapon, the C90, is pretty good, and we'll use them to actually bring in some Vilkas. So these Vilkas can be upgraded with the APS, and that will give us some Spike LRs on our vehicles. So that'll be a really nice combination. And we can also spoil ourselves with some Marine Raiders for more close range capability. So our close range capability is going to be really strong. Sort of distant. That doesn't really make sense, but like distant close range engagements. We don't want to be like in the same building as the enemy, but we want to be in the building next to them, if you see what I mean. And then that's going to work out really well. We've got like sort of line infantry that can stay at a distance in the buildings, Then we've got the Assaultmen Marine combo, which is just really good all-round infantry. And then we've got AT. So we're going to really want to look at AA, some man-pads. I don't think the cat teams are going to be worth bringing. We can also have a look at these squads, which I think are also great choices, because we can get like the CV90s, which is probably something we want to throw in. So we could go for like the Gelas Nisis Vilkas, which is a nice one that gets the Carl Gustav. I think the Carl Gustav is probably the best bet there over the Spike SR. And then we can bring the CV90 with that, or I can focus on bringing in some man pads, but we're probably not going to need man pads because we've got the Labad, we've got the NASMs if we need it in the support tab. Support tab's going to be pretty robust, so we don't necessarily need man pads. So I think I am going to go ahead and take some of these in the CV90, and that way we can get the CV90 into the deck, and we can up armor that CV90 so that we can mess around with it. And I'll probably bring like a extra couple squads there. So we've got a nice sort of range of units. Let's throw in some more of these. I'm really thinking that this is going to be a strong combination. Bring in 8 of those. That's really nasty. Extra CV90 maybe, or an extra Vilkas could be fun. I think we're good. I'm not sure if I really need this many Amtraks. I could probably get away with not bringing that many Amtraks and then just bring CV90s instead. Although the Amtrak is the only thing that can hold the Marine Raiders at the moment, so yeah, it's a little on the edge there. Maybe we could do like an extra Marine, so bring an extra Amtrak. I guess I don't need to do that. I can, yeah, we'll just bring one here, that's fine. I'll bring an extra, just in case. Alright, vehicles. Definitely bringing the Leopard to A8. So the nice thing about the Marine combination is like, yes, you have the M1A2 FEP, which does have 500 to 800, but you're also going to get like a Leopard to A8, which is kind of like a set V2. So in this case, we can run like the Leopard, just up armored for the extra health, and then have the FEP with its tusk and trophy. So this becomes the expensive one. This is going to be your sort of budget, no HGM version. And I think that's going to be a really strong combo. Just like both of those banged in here. I really want to get the Type X with the autocannon in. And then I also want some G-Wagons with Spike LRs. And then we can also add the CEV. And you can see how this deck's really coming together. You're going to have like pretty much everything you need in order to kill the enemy effectively. Really liking the CEV, so we'll add a couple more of those if I can. Although we are already over on every category, so I've got to be a bit careful of that. Patriot Pack 2, probably the best USA AA on more open maps. It will struggle in towns, but in general it's very good. Which means we're not going to really need to bring the Iris. Instead we'll bring the NASAM with the AMRAAM loadout. So that's going to be like our Shorad long range, and then we've got Shorad short range with the Labad. I think it's going to be kind of important to have. And we can go Panzer Haubitze for our artillery. These reload really fast, kind of strong, kind of lack range compared to the K9. The K9 we can give it extended range, which would be handy. We can also bring in the Miklik, which we could change to the Catfei, so we'll probably bring in the Catfei. It's going to be pretty handy to have, and we're going to put the extra armor and health on it to help it survive bombing strikes. And aside from that, we're looking at bringing in some transport. Probably the MTVR is going to be better and more useful than the other two. So we'll just smash in a bunch of MTVRs. Maybe some Mistral anti-air with the Unimog could be fun to try out. But I think normally what I would do here is probably bring in like a smoke vehicle like the LAV or the Panzermorse. So the Panzermorse has 120 mil. The LAV-M has a 81 mil, unless we go to the Dragonfire, which is actually another 120 mil. So that's probably what I would add normally. Regardless, we have a little bit of points here we can spend. Make sure we got 2 pack 2s in there, and that should be fine. In terms of heli-tab, we can use Vipers. So we'll do Viper with the Hydra rockets and then Sidewinders. Be kind of expensive, but it's okay. And then we'll just run like a cheaper anti-air variant, so just Sidewinders on Super Cobra. I'll run a couple Dolphins. They're really cheap infantry transport, and maybe something a bit thicker, something like this, Black Hawk with grenade launchers on. For the air tab, we get the F-35, so that's going to be really useful to have. Throw one of them in alongside the Prowler. Make sure we got plenty of harms ready to go. We can bring in the Harvest Hawk here or the Spartan. The Harvest Hawk can actually carry more, but it costs less, which is interesting. Either way, we need ASF, so we're going to bring in F-18C, and we're going to run it AMRAAM, Sparrow, AMRAAM, that's fine. So just 6 AMRAAM, Sparrow. I'm probably not going to use the Gunslinger. I could use some Gunslingers, I guess. Yeah, we'll run Gunslingers. That's a nice loadout. And yeah, it's either another F-35 or another F-18, or I could maybe run a couple of Harriers with Mavericks. That's not the right one. I think it's this one that we want to run with Mavericks for 180 points, something like that. Really handy to have these just for popping overextended armor. We can throw the Albatross in there as well with some rockets to try that out. Or I could maybe bring it in with some Sidewinders. This is the other way that I wanted to try it, to take down enemy aircraft on the, or helicopters on the flank. That could be a fun loadout. So we're sitting on 9,850 points after all that. We can probably just add more infantry. Maybe more Vilkas with another CV-90. Or I could do maybe an extra Scimitar. That'll do. Perfect. So that's going to be the Marine Baltic. I think it looks really good, and you can see how full it is. A lot of different units that fill a lot of different roles. You got strong anti-infantry capability with the CATFE, the CEV, decent like assault infantry between like the EST SOF and the Marine Raider CQC, plus like Marines and assault men. You got spikes for longer range AT. You got decent armor. You got decent helicopters, including a Hellfire helicopter if you need it. Really good air support. Decent support tab. This is why I think Marine Baltic's going to be pretty strong. So that's a nice option for sure. The next one that I wanted to build was Marine Stryker Baltic. I think Stryker Baltic will work nicely because Strykers can carry a lot of the Baltic infantry quite well. The only trouble with it, I guess, is that you're going to have to force yourself to bring troopers. The other one that's pretty interesting is Airborne Baltic. I think Airborne Baltic could be pretty good because you're kind of filling the helicopter and aircraft tab quite well with the airborne units, whilst the Baltic units kind of fill the rest of the tabs pretty well. So we'll start with a Stryker Cavalry Regiment, and if I have time, I'll run into a Baltic Airborne as well. So let's do Stryker Baltic. So this is going to be very light on the heli tab, as you can see, but you're probably just going to run a couple Dolphins, or maybe run a grenade launcher. I really want to try this. The grenade launcher Black Hawk. So a couple Dolphins in there is fine. In terms of air, you're running CJs, of course, with you can do fuel tanks harms. So four harms with the fuel tanks, and then AMRAAMs on those. So that's 315 points. That's absolutely fine. We run a Fighting Falcon. I usually run a Fighting Falcon with Mavericks, but I think in this case I'm probably just going to run like a Sidewinder or double AMRAAM sort of cluster bomber. We'll try that. We can run a Viper as our ASF, so I can change this to AMRAAM. We can run 2 AMRAAMs, 2 AIM-9s, or 3 AMRAAMs, 1 AIM-9. We take that off as fuel tanks, and then just keep that as default empty. And that's a really cheap ASF. So that's usually the sort of thing I would go for. Maybe we can put the Albatross in here as a Sidewinder boy, just to kind of fill that out. Lovely. Okay, support tab. We'll go back to recon and start there. I'm kind of doing this backwards. So Easty Scouts, the Spike SR. I think Jaegerists almost always take the cake, unless you're running like There would be a case where you might want to bring these if you're struggling for close range infantry in the infantry tab, but I think you're almost always bringing like the EST SOF as well over the Zaliukai, and even if you're bringing the Zaliukai, it kind of fulfills your close range needs. So I think EST SOF is fine, and we'll bring those in Vilcasaghan. So let's put them in there. And then that means that in the recon tab, we're probably going to be using Jägeris with Spartans again. I could use Easty Scouts. We'll pop some Easty Scouts in there and see how they get on. So we can mess around with them separate. But I think it's probably Spike with LR on the Spartan. Just a pretty handy weapon system. Here we'll take a cheap sniper or two. Maybe just put a wolf there with a grenade launcher, and then we're definitely bringing in scouts so that we can bring in up a completely upgraded Stryker RV. We can do a couple of scimitars, nice cheap auto cannon unit to help us out. We could also have a look at bringing this thing in and a couple of those just for the funsies. Alright, moving on. So Strikers is what we need. So we can run combat engineers alongside the ST SOF to get really cheap, fast armored vehicles for our units. But I think the way we're going to do this is probably go for maybe Trooper AA. So act as like man pads and sort of thick infantry squads. And that's going to allow me to bring in Dragoons with the APS and extra armor. So it's going to give us 4 of those. These carry 9 men each. And that is going to fit like most of these squads. So you can see here even the EST SOF is a 9-man squad. It's perfect to fit in those Strikers, which I thought is why it could be a really fun combination. As for the Spike, we'll make sure to bring that in with the XA. Get a couple of those XAs, 10-man transport. Make sure to give it the smoke and armor as the Spike. Definitely all of those Spikes is a good idea. Then I'm thinking what would be fun is double GMG squad with GMG M113s. So we can do that. That's like 2 in each one. I really like the idea of spamming the 5-man squads, but in this case I'm probably going to stick it to these guys. Maybe the Galazinis Vilkas or the Spike SR. I think since we're running the Istiskas with the Spike SR, we'll run the Galazinis with the CV90. Bring that in. Or upgrade this one to the max for the fun, because the infantry tab is absolutely huge in Stryker Baltic, and I think there's another reason that this combination is fantastic. And then we can throw in some of these, which is your nice cheap units. The grenade launcher, goat cage. Good stuff. Alright, anything else I'm missing here? We could add another CV90, but I'm not going to bother. Okay, vehicle tab. So we got the Booker, of course, but the 2A8 is going to be the main character, so we're going to put the machine gun and the trophy on that. Get 2 of those, and then the Booker will join with the 50mm auto cannon and the APS. So let's add plenty of those. Then we got the Type X, which will be auto cannon, and that's going to be pretty much all I've got room for. Support-wise, we've got the Patriot Pack 3 MSE, which will give 8 missiles. And then we want the Stryker Shorad, which will make sure is updated all the way, or like upgraded all the way. Aside from that, NASAMS is really kind of handy here. We can pop one of them in, just to kind of supplement the Stryker Shorad. Actually, to be honest, the NASAMS is probably better to bring than the Stryker Shorad, so we'll probably drop one of those Stryker Shorads. We can use the Hempt. It's a really useful supply vehicle because it can also carry infantry if needs be. Like 27 dudes can fit in this, which means I can fit 5 squads of the Kiilstofte in there, which is pretty nice. I might change them to the Zemesars because they have the Carl Gustav M2, which is very nice. They've got that decent longer range capability with their guns. In terms of artillery, well, it's just going to be one where I'm going to use the K9. We have plenty of snipers. I might add another sniper if I can, and we'll drop something else. Maybe I'll drop an ISTI to get a couple snipers. And that way we can use extended range with the laser guided munitions on those K9s. We can also bring HIMARS with HE, or I could do HE, or I could do cluster. That could be nice, but I think HE when you've got plenty of lasers is a good choice. Otherwise, CRAM maybe, just to intercept some missiles, or we could add a mortar. I think it's probably a good choice. 45-point truck with a G23 is interesting as well. I think in this case, armored M113 might be the way to go. Okay, let's just add another Stryker M there, and that's going to put us over by 80. So we've just got to try and trim this a little bit. Maybe drop a couple of these M113s in the infantry tab there. Okay, there we go. So yeah, maybe not as well rounded in that you don't have much helicopters, but air tab's still okay. Support tab's fantastic, infantry tab's fantastic, and this really like accentuates the bonuses that the Baltic brings. Right, let's do one more. We'll do a sort of, let's see, Marine. I don't know if I saved that. I did save that, yes, there. We'll do a Airborne Baltic as well. Airborne Baltic. So I think Airborne Baltic is going to be really nice because your helicopter tab is actually going to be pretty good, and your air tab is nice and decent as well. You'll be running a nice sort of cheap, probably, Eagle here. We can run a 290 Eagle. We can run a Strike Eagle with cluster. I like to run these with 10 cluster now. So if we go and we put cluster here, we've got cluster there. Is that normally fuel tanks? I'm trying to think how we do this normally. Ah, there we go. 10 cluster like that, fuel tank, only one of each missile, 350 point Strike Eagles. I think Strike Eagles is kind of overlooked at the moment in favor of EXs, but I really like Thunderbolts. So we're just going to bring in a Thunderbolt with just Mavericks and its gun. And we can run an EX because it is basically our only aircraft that can deal with enemy radar. So we're looking for, we'll just put Stormbreakers on it. We'll take harms. I can run more harms with AMRAAMs, something like that. So we can use it for bombing something if we want to, something light, I suppose, and then that's absolutely fine. So we can just jump that in. Kind of expensive seed aircraft, but it's okay. It's basically what we're going to use it for. Albatross could be something to use. I think in this case, like, you'd just add Sidewinders to your A10 if you wanted to, rather than using like an Albatross with Sidewinders instead. I think that's probably what it's going to be most useful for. I think in this deck, maybe I'll just make it a rocket plane. Okay, back to the recon tab anyway. So we have airborne snipers in this deck, which is a 3-man team, and I really like these as snipers because they have the ability to provide actually pretty good fire support with the M107, so we're going to bring those. The ISTI scouts we're going to maybe try out as the close range option here. So we'll pop them in the Wolf. The Wolf's really fast, so we should be able to get on top of the enemy with those. And this is probably going to be, I guess KNT is fine in this case, although you don't get a laser, which is a bit of a problem. Although I get a laser with the airborne snipers, so that's no issue. So we'll just take KNT. Sure that I've got plenty of those. And those can bring in a Spartan. which we'll just make into an HGM unit. We've got a couple of scimitars. We definitely want a Global Hawk. We can go ahead and put one of these HGM vehicles in there as well. Scimitar needs to be upgraded, and that should do nicely. Okay, infantry tab. So the infantry tab is where I feel like this is a bit weird, because you've got like 9 strength airborne, so you can run airborne squads with XA-180s if you wanted to. We'll run both of the EST SOF with Vilcas again. I think it's just like the perfect combination, generally speaking, and not necessarily to bring them in together. Like, I'm not going to bring the EST SOF in the Vilcas most of the time, but it is a good way to just get a couple of those Vilcas in the deck. I think they're really quite good. I think generally the way you're going to want to bring things in is with the XA-180s if you're going to try and dive on a building. So we just bring those in like so. MG team, the upgraded one with like the double HMG is definitely going to be the way to go. I think this combination is going to be really strong. Will I want a weapon squad instead of the Spike? Maybe. The trouble with the Javelin in this case, 1,300. It's probably still worth bringing. And again, we can bring those in XA-180s, which is much safer than bringing them in the M13. The M13 is like 120 speed, the XA-180 is 100. Then we could do some man pads. We can try out like the RBS maybe, and I can use that to bring in some CV90s, and we'll just bring them up armored without the upgrade onto the Mark IV version. I think these 90 point are actually going to be pretty good value for money. Vehicle wise, definitely going to just be Leopards, right? Bring in both of those. You do get the Type X in there. Definitely going to throw in Spike LR. We'll probably throw in a couple of M8s with 120mm gun and APS, and then maybe a Sheridan or two to provide fire support. Just maybe bring in an extra Type X there. In terms of the support tab, this one is generally quite weak because you don't get any Patriots. But you do get like the Iris, I guess, still, so that's fine. We'll just pop a couple of those in. We'll bring the NASAM, and the NASAM you can always upgrade to 170 points if you want to use it as an AA, but we'll keep it as a sort of mid-range SHORAD. Then we want probably the Avenger is a good shout. Kit and Smoke, although it's kind of expensive if you compare it to like the Mistral Unimog. We do have the RBS here, so I don't need to go like too crazy, but we will bring in the Mistral there. And then we've got option of Panzerhaubitze 2000, M105A or M109A5. We can also do Brutus, which can bring in the guided rounds, which is nice as well. I think I'm going to probably put the Panzerhaubitze in there. And then we will use MTVs as our supply, Panzermörser for mostly smoke, gauge armor, and then I think that's pretty much it. Like, unless I want an extended range K9, which I can fit in there pretty easily actually. Run 4 howitzers, it's kind of crazy. Right, Guardian. With Jagams and daggers is the way to go for sure, with nothing on the wingtips. And then we'll run an Apache with rockets, a longbow, and run fire and forget missiles as well. I don't know if I want to bring that though, because the Jagam's just better. And then we'll run some Dolphins just to cycle stuff to the front line, as well as grenade launcher Black Hawk, because it's cooler than the other one. Also probably want some air-to-air Stingers on the Kiowa. Let's bring plenty of those. Right, that's bringing us pretty close to the max cap on this deck. Throw another Apache in there. Maybe another Mistral Unimog. And infantry wise, what am I missing here? I could probably put some of these in. Maybe putting in a couple of those. Fry them. With the 82mm high explosive. Like anti-infantry spam. Could be fun. And there you go. Yeah, so I think another interesting combination that is relatively well-rounded. Maybe not as well-rounded as Marine. But you of course benefit from having stronger helicopters, and the air tab's pretty nice. The main thing you're going to want to make sure is that your strike eagles are there to deal with heavy armor, because whilst you do have 2 leopards, if one of those dies, you're going to be in a bit of a hole. So those cluster munitions are going to be super important, especially since your support is not also going to be able to deal with armor very well unless you're getting laser guided hits on with the K9 coup. So yeah, there you go. So that's just a few decks that I've thrown together, and hopefully that's kind of helpful in general for building decks. Obviously I've done that very quickly. There will be mistakes, there will be things that I want to change, but ultimately we've managed to put together decent infantry tab, recon tab. We've got make sure to get the AA, supply, artillery in the support tab, and then the rest is kind of just as you wish. Yeah, really cool. Hopefully I'll be able to get some footage with these decks soon, but in the meantime, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.